What is up, guys? Today we have something special in the works. Today was the AMD RDNA 3 announcement stream, and let me tell you, Lisa Sue, she knows how to boogie her way onto the stage in full fashion. She was popping right off, and I'm not gonna lie, while I was watching the stream, I was kind of monitoring the YouTube comments as they were coming, because it was a live stream, and I saw a comment that said that they wish that she was their grandma, and I took that comment to heart, and I hope that you guys kind of take it to heart too, because I think I would love Lisa Sue as a grandma, but she's young too, so maybe let's move on. So they were talking about RDNA 3, and we finally got a little bit of a look into the GPUs that they're making. And so these bad boys are insanely priced, and they have pretty dang good power consumption. So they revealed the 7900 XTX and the XT, both 7900 nomenclatures there for a second, and I'll kind of discuss that in a little bit. But so the XTX has 96 compute units at 2.3 gigahertz, 24 gigabytes of memory with DisplayPort 2.1, and a total board power of only 355 watts. And I know I say only, but that's still a lot. But as we see with the competitors, they're kind of on the track of being like right below them. And that card was priced at $1,000. A measly, okay, that's not measly, that's a lot of money. But of course, like in comparison to what NVIDIA is doing with their 4090, that is really undercutting them. And in my opinion, that was like the biggest blow that they threw at NVIDIA this whole announcement, just the price. And then so after they revealed the XTX, they dropped the 7900 XT stats as well. So the XT has 84 compute units, 2 gigahertz, 20 gigabytes of memory, DisplayPort 2.12, and only 300 watts of power. And that one was priced at $900. So it's pretty much just a shaved version of the XTX, it seems. Now with this with the 24 gigs of memory and the 20 gigs of memory, that's a lot, and I think it's going to be perfect for 4K gaming. It's pretty much what the 4090 has with it's 24 gigabytes of memory, and I believe with the 3080 they had like 16 with the Ti at least. And so 20 gigabytes of memory, you're going to be like fully happy with that in terms of just gaming, especially at high resolution, and it's just going to be helpful for that. So they're releasing the first consumer chiplet GPU where it's using 5 nanometers for the graphics die and 6 nanometers for the memory cache die. And 6 nanometers is probably where they're saving a little bit of money on how they're able to kind of like price it at where it's at. And I heard one theory that they're kind of like putting this price so low for now just to like get some more market share and make it more enticing. Because would you rather pay for a 7900 XTX at $1,000 or an RTX 3080, which has it may or may not have like similar or even better performance in terms of the XTX over the 3080 for $1,200? See, like the $1,000 is really more enticing for people, you know, especially when people are on a little bit of budget. But at that price point, you think that, you know, you're going balls to the wall, so drop the balls on the walls, you know what I'm saying? So they're basically, what they're doing is they're taking what they learned from their CPUs and moving it over to the GPUs. So them using chiplets in their GPU is really helpful for their like power consumption, mostly because when you're using like GDDR6X, that power consumption like goes through the roof. And with them being able to use that chiplet cache instead of like kind of like moving through their memory, it's helping them save a good amount, it seems. So they also had stated afterwards that RDNA 2 to RDNA 3 is about a 50% increase in performance to watt. And you'll see that in like the main theme of the whole stream was that they were kind of hyping up the energy efficiency of the cards, and that was like the whole vibe of it, where they were pushing that mostly. They weren't kind of like, well, in the middle with one of the presenters, they were kind of pushing like, hey, we got performance. But I think the main vibe was that, yo, we are using a lot less power to get you to higher heights than the competition is, basically. And you'll see that like they start throwing shade a little bit later, and I'll talk about that in a little bit later too. But they also afterwards have brought up the Radiance display engine, is what they're calling it, but it's really just their allowing kind of 12-bit per channel color, and it's their DisplayPort 2.1 stuff, which supports up to 8K 165 refresh rate and 4K 480 hertz. And you heard that right. So 165 hertz and 480 hertz. That is massive and definitely forward facing, but it doesn't quite mean you're going to be gaming at that resolution at that frame rate. So don't expect to be pushing your cards up to 165 hertz on 8K. All right, that's all I'm saying. So now let's go ahead and go to their charts. So something that I noticed here with their charts is that they didn't have any comparisons between NVIDIA's 4090, even though it's been out for a month already, or even just Intel, because we know they would blow Intel out of the water pretty easily. And I just thought it was a little bit weird, mostly because like if you have like a card that's so like not as power hungry as the competitors, and even if it's like lower, I think there's a benefit of at least showing, hey, look, we're like at least around their FPS here, but at a much more reasonable rate of everything, really. And you'll see that I keep bringing it up, but they start to throw shade at NVIDIA here, and this is kind of where it begins. But they were saying that 4K is starting to kind of become the standard, so I think that's a good thing. That 4K is becoming a standard, and mostly because like these cards are pushing way harder than 1440p or 1080p especially can like handle, especially because like sometimes, and you'll see it in their charts, they had parts where they couldn't get past the engine because it had like a hard limit for it. And so something that wasn't very nice though is that they weren't too forthcoming for the settings in some of the games, but I'll talk about that in a second too. But it's still quite impressive in my eyes at the very least. So they showed some 1440p results that said they were reaching the engine caps in Apex Legends and Overwatch, and they're hitting 833 FPS in Valorant. And the FPS caps for Apex Legends and Overwatch were 300 FPS for Apex and 600 FPS for Overwatch 2, and that was in 1440p. So you can see like, hey, this resolution's getting capped already, so we need to kind of go up one more. And they went up to 4K. And then so afterwards, they dropped some pretty big numbers, and they said that with max settings, with FSR enabled, you can hit refresh rates in AAA games like Hitman 3 at 275 FPS, Modern Warfare 2 at 306 FPS, and F1 2022 at 353 FPS, which those games, in my opinion, are like really good scalers anyways. They're not the hardest to run, and they kind of like push themselves really hard. And it's always nice to get those big numbers out, kind of just to kind of flex a little bit. And that resolution, that was in 4K, which is insane, because you know we were in times where like 1440p was hard to run, and now we're just kind of like pushing new heights at this point. Even though at some times they weren't the most forthcoming. I'll explain that soon. So the elephant in the room is when they start talking about 8K gaming. So I was in it when they were talking about 4K gaming. I was like, yeah, let's go. And then they were kind of pushing 8K. Like they made it a point, like a really solid point. They were like, guys, we are a good 8K gaming GPU. And so they touted this with Assassin's Creed Valhalla, and they went so far as to call it a crisp experience, and they reached up to 96 FPS with FSR enabled. Now, NVIDIA was kind of caught in this hole too with the 30 series, and that was like one of their main selling points. But I'm not gonna lie, if like I think NVIDIA kind of learned their lesson there, and I think AMD, they're just making the same mistake that NVIDIA did. And just to show you proof, if we like go to NVIDIA's website, all right, for the 4090, let's see where in the site 8K gaming is even mentioned. All right, so at the top, there's nothing about 8K gaming here. I don't see anything about that. Let's scroll down slowly. Architecture, performance, DLSS 3, reflex, specs, all that stuff. No 8K gaming. NVIDIA Ada Lovelace architecture ahead of its game. No 8K gaming here. New SMs, 4th gen Tensor cores, RT cores. No 8K gaming. Oh, is there 8K gaming here? Cutting edge GPUs, realistic immersive. Nope, 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 nope. Keep going down. Okay, hey, okay, performance. Okay, maybe this is an 8K, right, guys? Relative performance. Oh, okay, 4K resolution. So that's 4K. So let's go ahead and move on. No 4K there, or no 8K there. Sorry. Moving down. Oh, okay, RTX on. Maybe this was an 8K. No, nothing about 8K. Oh, here you go. Captured at 4090 at 4K. That's still not 8K. Where could they have put 8K when it was such a big thing in the 30 series advertisements? They were like, we are the premier 8K gaming cards, and it's like, are you sure? We're still going down. We're still going down. We're still going down. I still don't see it. No 8K gaming. No 8K. Game ready driver experience. G-Sync. Oh, there it is. Finally, at the look at this. It's at the very bottom of the entire website. 8K HDR gaming at the very, very bottom. So you see, guys, if NVIDIA learned their lesson, AMD kind of has to too. And it's kind of sad to see them kind of falling into that rabbit hole. But I guess it is what it is, right? So AMD's now here too. And Gamers Nexus actually caught this. In their endnotes for their presentation, they had stated that there was something called 8K ultra wide and 8K by itself. So 8K ultra wide, let me tell you what the number is for 8K in general. So the resolution for 8K is 7680 by 4320. Now 8K ultra wide that they were touting was 7680 by 2160. So that is half of the amount of frames you were rendering there. And that's basically in the graph that they showed for the 4 8K gaming titles that they tried. For Death Stranding, they hit 148 FPS, and Modern Warfare 2, they hit 190 FPS. And that was their little secret, like, ha ha ha, marketing magic, look at that. And that was a little bit sad to see, because it's like, come on guys, you can do better than this, right? You don't need to hype it up this bad. You can just stick with the 8K regular resolution, use your FSR, whatever, but it's just not 8K. So let's talk about some leaks that Moore's Law is Dead had brought up just recently, actually. And so they stated recently that there wasn't an expectation for the XTX to beat the 4090 in rasterization performance. So we're probably going to have to kind of see in independent reviews how that kind of works out. But Moore's Law is Dead also kind of noted that AABs are making 3x8 pin models so that they could jack up their power consumption a little bit. So we might see higher performing XTXs in the AIB models just because they're allowed to kind of suck up more power. And since NVIDIA is kind of throttling their supplies of 4090s currently, they just have these like coolers and stuff that they can apply onto the AMD GPUs actually, and see like how much more power you might be able to kind of grab off of them. And honestly, that doesn't sound like the worst thing, getting more power for the card that you buy. And hey, being able to kind of overclock it like that, we might even be able to see kind of like 4090 level performances, hopefully. But we'll just have to see about that. So speaking of power plugs, by the way, and AMD is sticking with the 8 pins. So I know that's not like supposed to be like really big news, but given that the NVIDIA cards were like burning up, basically, they weren't burning up, but the power connectors were kind of melting on you. They were kind of, AMD was a little bit like, hey, we're using the 8 pins, we're a little bit better like that, all right? So don't even mind us, all right? We're better. We knew this was gonna happen a year in advance, and there were some rumors that like AMD was going to stop using the 12 pin, but that was like a month ago, and there is no way that they have had enough time to actually change the connector like that. And that's just not how it works, you know? But let's talk about how AMD was throwing shade at NVIDIA this presentation. And so there was one specific presenter who was kind of like throwing blow after blow about him. And so the first thing is that the card is a 2.5 slot card. So immediately it's like half smaller than the 4090. And given how much power it kind of pushes out too, pretty awesome. So I personally noticed this, but he could comfortably hold the 7900 XTX in one hand without him like kind of like shaking around or like it looking too heavy. So that was a plus too, and I thought that was pretty funny. So now going back to what the presenter was stating, so let me give you some exact quotes. No need to rebuild your desktop, no need to upgrade your case, and no need for a power adapter. And then he was just like looking at the crowd like, that's right, I said that. There's no need for a power adapter. Yeah. And it was like, okay, come on, dude. You didn't know that was gonna happen, and you're just kind of taking advantage of the situation. It's like, okay. Something else that they stated was, it's as easy as pulling out your old card and putting in a new one. And it's like, that's pretty much any GPU you put into your computer, right? It's like, come on, man. Okay, I guess. And then this part I can kind of see, but it's also like the way he stated it was so like, he stated that the competition only supports DisplayPort 1.4, which for the 4090 they're still at 1.4. But he said that you should actually get to see the frames you're paying for, and this comes after like them not revealing that 4K or 8K ultra wide is half the frames of actual 8K performance. And it's like, really, dude? And he could have said this in a more neutral way, like, hey, DisplayPort 2.1 is like forward facing, and it's good to be able to be ready for that. And if we allow ourselves to have this port, we can give ourselves new goals to push ourselves towards. You know, it could have been something like that. And then my final and favorite quote from him was, we as gamers need to demand a GPU that will allow us to game into the future. And by that he meant with 8K gaming. And I don't know about you, but I don't fully expect to be trying to game myself into the future like that. Like, I'm not a time hopper or anything, but it is what it is. And so yeah, that kind of wraps up the AMD announcement. They're looking like a pretty good competitor for NVIDIA right now, and they're really trading bros with that price, and I'm really happy about that, especially because, you know, with NVIDIA, they're kind of like they're trying to be a little bit like Apple right now, and they're pushing their own cards and they're raising their prices like $100. And then for the 4080 compared to the 3080, the 3080 was like $800, and the 4080 now is gonna be like $1,200. So that's like a $400 increase. Meanwhile, AMD is like, we're just gonna lower our prices right now, and you have the XTX for $1,000, and then you have the XT for $900, and that in itself is gonna push so many people towards AMD. On top of the connector issue, on top of the fact that EVGA had left NVIDIA and people kind of have bad blood with NVIDIA, this is the year for AMD, I'm feeling, at least in terms of GPUs. And honestly, I kind of hope Intel kind of pulls up a little more too with their Battle Mage card, but we'll have to see where that is when it comes to it. Just remember, guys, you need to demand a GPU that will allow you to game into the future. All right, guys? So that being said, leave a like if you liked it. Leave a dislike if you disliked it. I'm going to go game into the future, guys. Peace.